So this morning I want to start off with an exercise. It's a kind of a warm-up, and it's also an opportunity to get warmed up, not only socially, but to get your brain working about your company and your business plan and your presentation. What I'm going to try to do here with you is I want you to split up into teams of 3. If there's 30 people here, that means we're going to have roughly 10 teams of 3 people each. Okay. One person in that team of 3 will be presenting your pitch within about 5 minutes to the other 2 people. The other 2 people are going to act like you're going to play the role of an investor. So you have a presenter and 2 investors. So you choose among yourselves who will be that presenter, because you won't be doing this more than one time. But I just want you to team up into 3 and again choose who you want to present and who will be the other investor. And you will have about 5 minutes first to introduce yourselves to each other, get acquainted, about a minute, and then take 5 minutes for that presenter to present to the other person your pitch position. Right? So to articulate your value proposition, it's all about explaining in a simple, compelling way, what do you do that's better than anybody else? That's what I was getting at in this exercise here when I asked you for your value proposition. What do you do that's better than anybody else as a company in your business? If it's service business, then it's personal what you do. So you don't get to a value proposition by just looking at your business plan or studying something, your market research or whatever, and say all of a sudden, here it is, I think this is what's going to work, this is why I'm different. It's a process. You get to it by going through a certain process. And the typical process, I'm sure you hopefully have heard this in your B school background, is a SWOT analysis. Okay? It's all about your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats, the competitive threats. You need to go through this exercise. And you do it after you do some market research, talk to the competition, talk to the market infrastructure, listen to the dialogue, and look at and analyze all the information out there directly, primary information as well as secondary. And then you're ready to brainstorm with your team, 2, 3, 4, 5 people, or bring in some consultants, whatever it is, and you sit down, spend a day, lock yourself in a room, have a whiteboard, and start off with, here's why we're different, and just put a bunch of stuff on the whiteboard. Okay, look at it, discuss it, analyze it, what falls out, what sticks to the wall, you know, it's like throwing pasta against the wall, what sticks, if it's al dente or not. That's what you want to find out if you have a value proposition. That comes out. And you do some reality testing after that. If you think you have a value proposition, test it. Bring some people together. Bring your friends together who might be buying your service, if you're a consumer-based service. Do a little focus group. Start asking questions. What's important to you about this value proposition? Is it coming through? How can we change this? Does it resonate in your pocketbook, in your heart, wherever you think this is supposed to be targeting, okay, in terms of your features and benefits? And then you're ready to start iterating, meaning to start wordsmithing. Yesterday I gave you this long, huge boilerplate statement from a genetic engineering company. Well, they didn't do their homework. They're technologists, like most technology-driven companies. They're PhDs. They're trained to be as verbose as possible because that makes you important. Well, that's fine in school, but in the marketplace you have to be simple. You've got to come across with a straightforward statement and says who you are, what we do. Okay. And so that's what has to be your wordsmithing competitive advantage, your value proposition. Because that statement is going to inform your pitch. That statement is going to inform your story. That statement is going to inform your advertising. That statement is going to inform everything you do. It's a simple statement. All right? And we'll talk about more of this later. All right? So, I just said the slide here. Again, it informs all these various aspects of your branding, corporate, and product. So let's take, a typical statement here It's a lot of words, I must say. This is an internal statement, but this is a value proposition for a company that we developed called Cepheid. They're a biotech company has developed a desk-based box that analyzes DNA. PCR-based system for analyzing. You get a piece of unknown sample, and you can analyze it to see if there is, say, anthrax in there or a certain disease. It's designed to be able to analyze DNA based on the genetic code of that particular organism. And so the key to this business that they have here is that they have their product is a gene expert system, and it's in italicized here. It's the first automated, integrated integration of all the steps required to detect DNA from complex biological specimens: sample preparation, amplification, and detection. In the marketplace today, these three things for this company, in that market, they're not done together. And they were the first to do this. And so that was their value proposition. And this then informed all their business, all their advertising and their story and so on. Here's another one, Blue Heron. They're a company that's based in Seattle that I have been serving for the last 2 years. They just got acquired, by the way. So they achieved their exit strategy, at least part of it. And they are a service-based business where researchers and both in companies and in universities can submit a genetic code that they have designed, and from that code they'll ask Blue Heron to create DNA. Okay, the DNA then is used back by the company to drive their experiments or create a different drug or so forth. But so Blue Heron provides gene synthesis services. All right, and so this has become a commodity market. 5 years ago, it would cost probably $1,000 to $10,000 to create a piece of DNA based on genetic code. Today, it's about as little as 10 cents per base pair. So you can create DNA for like $4 or $5. So it's a commodity market. How's this company going to survive in a commodity market? They have to be able to differentiate themselves because everybody's doing this and anybody can do it. High school kids can do it almost, okay? So they have to then focus on their personalized, customized service. And so this is what their value proposition was. Blue Heron partners with its research clients to provide knowledge-based gene synthesis services that help them successfully compete against the time, high cost, inefficiency, and risk of failure. In our SWOT analysis with Blue Heron, we found out that the competition wasn't just competition in terms of other companies. The competition was entropy. Okay, you're a researcher. What are you dealing with when you're doing research? The unknown. You have no way to control your experiments. That's what you're in the business of. You're trying to figure out and get information to move on to the next part of the research experiment. So you are competing with entropy. You're competing with inefficiency. You're competing against time, money. And so the strategy for the value proposition here was that we're going to partner with you because we understand what keeps you up at night. What keeps you up at night is worrying about whether this experiment's going to work or not, whether we get the right results or not, and whether we can move forward. Because every day we lose in this experiment and the research process, we're losing money because we're not getting to the marketplace with our drug. So that was a pain that we were able to identify and utilize to work with the value proposition through our SWOT analysis here. So we are partnering with the client here, if I'm Blue Heron, all right? So this is an example here. So again, the value proposition becomes the core of your elevator statement, we said earlier. And it's part of the elevator pitch. I'm not saying that you only have 30 seconds to tell your story, no. But you have only 30 seconds or a minute or two to get the attention from somebody. It's like you go to a restaurant, you have an hors d'oeuvre. You taste it, tastes good, I want some more. I'm ready for the primo piatto. I'm ready for the next course. How many times have I gone to a restaurant, I taste the first hors d'oeuvre, and I go and start sniffing around, and go, I think I'm going to leave. Thank you very much. I'll go home and make my own Italian meal, you know. So this is what the purpose of the elevator pitch is to generate interest, to get them to stop. When you go to a trade show, you walk down all these aisles of booths, you know, and some of them are just so many bullets, so much information, Or some of them will have just one statement, one picture that stands out. And that's the idea of the elevator pitch. You want to stop for a minute and listen some more, get more information. And that's what the elevator pitch is all about, okay? So it's a distillation of your business plan, your business model. So, that's what I'm saying. You want to get the attention in the first 10 seconds of your value proposition. And in this top level summary, again, you've got to be able to articulate the opportunity. We talked about the solution, identify your customer, as the gentleman back there said, and how are you going to make money and why this team. That's got to come across in 5 minutes or less, all right? So this is then what your story is all about again, your problem, the opportunity, and your value proposition. So yesterday I talked about the fact that I started in this business as a journalist. All right, I'm gonna put this thing down. I hate pulling things. Just speak from that. I started as a journalist years ago, science journalist. And in journalism, if you read the newspaper, what do you see the first thing? It's a headline, okay? And you see the first sentence after the headline that catches your interest, you see what's called the lead. In journalism, you say, do you have a good lead? And this is usually spelled L-E-D-E, which is to differentiate from L-E-A-D, which could be spelled or pronounced lead or lead. You know, this is one of the problems in the English language. So in journalism, we spell it this way. And the purpose of the lead is to come through with with the theme of the story is. And one of the most biggest mistakes in writing a story is having a buried lead. At some place in the middle of the story, you get to the punchline, when it should be way up on top because the reader doesn't have time to read the whole story. And so if you don't catch the story theme on the top, they're going to go to the next headline and the next story. How many times you watch your behavior when you read a newspaper or the web, okay, online. What do? You go from headline to headline. The headline grabs you. You go to the lead, read the first paragraph, and maybe if you're lucky, if they're lucky, the journalist's lucky, you'll read the whole article. You just go. I'm not here just to make you happy or to, whatever. I have a big, huge responsibility as an investor. I need to make money for my partners. And this is what they are thinking. This is the person you have to convince. This is the buyer. This is the customer. You're not selling a product, you're selling your business. And so you have to position your business as an opportunity, not just a product. Okay? So I think often people confuse what you're presenting when you're talking to an investor. You're not trying to sell product, you're trying to sell the business in terms of why it's a good return on their investment. I think you understand that, all right? So, you're all about telling a clear and easy to repeat story. Sounds like you need a lot of practice here, okay? Just based on the sample here we had. You need to position your company as again, competing with other investments. It's not competing with products and markets. Again, this is your customer now. If I'm an investor, I have the choice to invest in another company. I have the choice of buying a lottery ticket if I want to. And if that's the choice based on what you're providing, then you're not presenting a good story, because you better give me better odds than a lottery ticket, okay, for getting some return. Right? If that's what you're offering, I don't want to go any further, because that's a huge gamble. And of course you're a huge gamble. And that's why you got to present a compelling value proposition, a compelling story. All right? So you need to be able to compete against other investors, all right, and other potential opportunities here.